All right, we will go ahead and get the meeting started, and if everybody could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for roll call, we have Jamie is absent this evening. We also have Marshall Crutcher, who is traveling for business, so he will not be here either. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Lisa? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to communications, if I could have Berkeley Middle School. I do, because you need paper.
I got one right there.
Nope, I just found it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim Kern, and I am happy to be here to kind of highlight our National Junior Honor Society. Today, I have with me Cheryl Tenchard, who is the sponsor for NJHS, and then also several of our students, Maddie and Taylor Kordick, Dominic Matea, Gabrielle Kittinger, and Ariam Weldemichael. Our NJHS ends up doing a lot of stuff for the school district and community. They started out last year selling ribbons for Officer Snyder's family. In the fall, they participated in the 10th annual Bowling for Bucks against Washington Middle School, where last year was our first year winning in 4 years, to where they were able to donate to the charity of their choice, which was Save the Children. The National Junior Honor Society students also volunteer their time in other schools. One of those with the John Kerry Early Childhood Center with their Family Fun Night. They also planned the largest ever fall festival, where they had a haunted hallway where half of the kids ended up scaring the public that came, and the other half played games. They also ended up cooperating with Mehlville High School on making grave aprons for the veterans for families that are buried at JB. And then for the holidays, they filled and wrapped shoe boxes for Mehlville High School, gathered donations for an adopted family, and caroled down at Hardee's and Lee Plaza. After winter break, they ended up selling hot chocolate for a family who needed some assistance at our own school. They also ended up having their 3rd annual game night, which was the biggest crowd that we've had, and it keeps increasing every year. Also did Read Across America, where they cooperated again with Mehlville High School on creating a Dr. Seuss-inspired hallway with characters, games, and crafts. Last but not least, they host a talent show every year to showcase all the talents of all the students at Berkeley. The talent show alone last year raised over $2,400, and the profits went to Make-A-Wish Foundation, where they alternate every year for Make-A-Wish and then needed items for our building. All in all, our NJHS does an outstanding job, led by Cheryl Tenchard, and just providing service to everybody in the Mehlville School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If I could have Deanna with the NEA, she has 3 members.
Hello, thank you. My name is Dina McKelvey, and I'm excited to see Margaret Berkeley Middle School here because I like working. They work with us for NHS, and some of those things are coming up, and it's going to be exciting. So it was nice to see them here tonight. We are honoring 3 students for August and September. If I could have Riley Parisi, Grace Logan, and Dylan Cresswell. Please come on up. I would like to introduce Grace Logan, and she was nominated by her teachers to win or to get awarded the Respect Award. Grace Logan is a person who will make you smile when you see her coming down the hallway. Grace is the epitome of a high-five student. She is always respectful, responsible, kind, cooperative, and safe. As a fifth grader, Grace is an excellent role model to the many students who look up to her at Beasley. We are so lucky to have Grace as a Beasley Jaguar. And this is Dalen Cresswell, and he was nominated by teachers at Mehlville High School. Dylan is a very conscientious student who is among the most polite young men at MHS. It is not unusual for Dalen to go above and beyond expectations. For example, Dalen stays after football games and helps the maintenance and custodial staff clean up the bleachers. He is always willing to help out his fellow man. Above and beyond this, Dylan is a great student academically, and he is headed to Missouri State next fall.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Could we have you for
do pictures?
Here?
Please. Thank you. I know, which is why I picked you. We will be moving on to open period of patron comments, and we have Donna Seidel. So as soon as they're done, Donna, come on up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
To further data-driven decisions made by the board, I would like to request the following metrics from a survey to be conducted and results presented independently of central office. A survey of all high school students and their families to be shared before any further changes are made to the high school schedule. Number one, the number of schedule conflicts this year to be broken out by each high school. Number two, the number of days to resolve schedule conflicts, again, broken out by each high school. Three, the number of conflicts that still exist, also broken out by each high school. And what is the satisfaction rating of the resolution to these conflicts on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being completely satisfied, broken out by each high school. Number 5, a comparison of this data, should it exist, from 2016, 2017, and prior, again, broken out by a high school. A second survey also be conducted and results presented independently of central office of all high school students, their families, and teachers without reprisal of the approval rating on a scale of 1 to 5, again, with 5 being completely satisfied for the new C days, and a comment section to support their rating. This survey would preferably be conducted midway through the current school year to allow a more than fair period of time on which to base their feedback. Additionally, should the board persist on this course, how will parents and students see a mock schedule of the hybrid before its implementation? And finally, in the cases where a class could not be offered in a block or traditional schedule that fits the rest of a student's block or traditional schedule, will those students miss an opportunity to take the classes they require or desire? What is the tolerance level? 1 student, 10 students, 100 students who cannot be accommodated? I look forward to the results. Thank you.
Thank
Donna,
you.
what was number 5 and then first?
She's going to get it to us. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our standing committee reports. I know everybody's been busy. Oh, I'm sorry.
I did not get signed up. I apologize. We just were made aware that that third student from Rogers is on their way here. They made a mistake and went to Rogers instead, so beg your indulgence when they arrive. Can
Absolutely.
we interrupt? Thank you so much.
Absolutely, of course. Okay. Committee reports. Who's done what lately? Somebody.
Start?
Anybody.
All right. Depends how much detail you have. Facilities Committee met, and I was going to try to keep this short. They discussed the work that was done over the summer, which was quite extensive. They had a lot that was done. Fields, floors, a lot of air conditioning. Pretty amazing they got everything done they did. And we went over plans for, I forget if it was the next coming 2 years or 5 years, but a lot of things are laid out for the next couple of years already. I went over that. And I won't go into details on this, but Chris had asked a question about the Whistle Building, which I think actually he talked about in the State of the District address, just as far as if something major happened where we had to invest money to keep that open, would it be a smart idea to do that or not? Because of all the costs that would be associated with it. And the committee looked at that and basically said they didn't think that would be a good idea. So Chris and his team, I know, have already taken some steps from that to figure out how to do some contingency planning if needed. That was all I had. Okay. Did you have more details?
Jean.
Yes, I have a...
Turn on your mic.
I just would like to, as part of my MSBA committee report, show a very brief video.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of September. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the makeup of the State Board of Education. Governor Greitens is putting his mark on the State Board of Education through some appointments to the 8-member board. In August, the governor appointed Melissa Gellner of Springfield and Eddie Justice of Poplar Bluff to the State Board. They were sworn in during the board's August meeting. However, the governor later withdrew Gellner's appointment. Gellner then issued a statement in which she said she was frustrated by the governor's policy team and the little effort from them to collaborate with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to work on behalf of our public schools. She added, "I'm also concerned about the pressure I've recently experienced to make rash decisions." 2 additional members were appointed by the governor in late August and were sworn in at the September meeting. The new state board members can begin their service immediately, but are subject to confirmation by the Missouri Senate. They serve staggered 8-year terms. No more than 4 members can belong to the same political party, and no more than 1 member can be from the same county or congressional district. The state board has considerable influence over education policy on the state level and appoints the Commissioner of Education. MSBA officers and staff attend the monthly meetings of the State Board. During its August meeting, the State Board approved Missouri's plan under the federal government's Every Student Succeeds Act. Each state must submit a plan under the federal law. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has worked on the plan for a year and held 9 regional meetings to hear from the public on what matters most in the education of children. In a presentation to the State Board, Assistant Commissioner Dr. Chris Neal characterized the document as a skinny plan that satisfies federal requirements but doesn't go beyond that. Neal says the Missouri School Improvement Plan will continue to be the primary driver of school improvement for schools throughout the state.
Missouri believes that the Missouri School Improvement Plan is a primary improvement driver. We continue to believe that is the proper way to affect systemic improvement to all districts and charter LEAs, but ESSA is an important, fairly narrow, but important a part of our approach to improving schools, primarily through that statewide system of support for school improvement, through the aspects of improving and supporting our educators and our educational leaders, and finally in Title IV specifically to increase equitable access to high quality education.
The State Board of Education will consider adopting the latest version of the Missouri School Improvement Plan for public comment at its October meeting. The MSBA Delegate Assembly will be considering an important document of its own at a meeting on October 6th at the Lake of the Ozarks. The Delegate Assembly will be considering MSBA's proposed advocacy positions document that combines 3 previous documents: legislative resolutions, MSBA's platform statements, and position statements contained in the Missouri Public Education Vision Project report. The Advocacy Committee and Executive Committee have spent the past year working on combining those documents.
The purpose of doing this, having a new document, is for us to have one concise document that we, as an organization, have our stance on all legislative issues affecting public education, for us as board members, and more importantly, for our MSBA staff to help in advocacy efforts as we work with our legislators throughout the year, but most especially through the legislative session.
Meese adds the new advocacy positions document will make MSBA and local board members even more effective advocates for public education.
And I know that as a local board member, and all of us as local board members try to be as nonpartisan as we can when it comes to issues, because we have to do what's best for kids, and it could be on either side of the aisle, but our focus is on our children, our students, and their success in schools. And these are positions that we feel are extremely important to help our students succeed in their schools and then in their lives.
Every MSBA member school board is entitled to send at least one voting delegate to the Delegate Assembly that will be held in conjunction with the 2017 MSBA Annual Conference. Be sure your school board is represented at the Delegate Assembly. There's still time to register for the annual conference that will be held October 5th through 8th at the Lake of the Ozarks. The event features outstanding keynote speakers and 130 breakout sessions on a wide range of topics of interest to school board members and administrators. The annual MSBA School Personnel Information Survey is now open. This survey collects information on the wages, salaries, and benefits of teachers and other school employees to help boards and administrators make fully informed personnel decisions. Member districts that complete the survey and submit their salary schedules and collective bargaining agreements by November 13th receive free access to the data collected. Make sure your district's information is included in this year's database. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
And that's all I have. Okay. Policy?
Yeah, I didn't have anything more to add to facilities either, Kevin, other than what you had said about the facilities meeting. And Dr. Gaines covered the rest of it really in greater detail at the address the other night. So you can always check that video if you're wanting to know more. Policy, we met this week, right? Tuesday? Yes. Tuesday. Seems like a long time ago. And we talked about a number of policies. None of them are up for review and or voting tonight, but they're regarding personnel, some personnel records and personnel policies. And one of the other ones that we're looking a little bit, for a little bit additional clarity on would be the amount of information that we present or publish in our directory, our school directories, with regard to personal and student information. So we had a couple of questions about that, so we'll wait until Mr. Catalana hears back from MSBA on kind of the requirements and whatnot, and then go back to the committee as necessary. That's it. Thank you. Larry?
Well, the MSBA film pretty well took care of my agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The couple of things that also went on at the state board, there was also a detailed discussion of the budget that's going to be proposed and that's going to go for consideration by the legislature. And there was a detailed explanation of where MSIP 6 sits right now. They'll get the final readout in the next month, and then we'll have some public comments, and then I believe in January is when they're going to try it out on some member districts. You already mentioned the conference. On the 5th, One of the things that's been very popular is we have school board presidents come in for a training session on Thursday afternoon. Last year we had about 35 or 40. We think we'll have probably 60 or 70 this year. The school safety conference precedes that for a couple of days, so there's a crossover on Thursday. So if you come up for the president's conference, you get a chance to go to some of that. And you've already saw about the advocacy document. So that pretty well covers everything.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one more thing about the, gosh, it just escaped me. Go ahead, I'll think of it.
Sounds like 3 words. First one.
I know, that's bad. I know what it was. Okay, as recipients of last year's Outstanding Board of Education Award here at Mehlville School District, we have been asked to make a presentation as one of the breakout sessions that they mentioned. The MSBA conference will hold about 130 breakout sessions where you can go and, you know, learn different things that you can bring back to your district to improve the district. And because of our win last year, they have asked us to please present the story of how we did that and what it contained. So that's all I wanted.
Saturday, 2:30, room 7071.
Oh, I didn't know that. Saturday, 2:30, room what?
70/71. It's a combination room.
All right, thank you.
We're presenting with Hancock.
Okay. Good.
We're actually engaged in 3 presentations. That one, there's another one that we're involved in with Redefining Ready later that same day. But on Friday, we've got a team talking about our work in STEM.
That's good.
Do you know where or about what time? No?
It's at 10 o'clock on Friday, room. I'll find that.
Okay.
I can pull it off. It's probably on the app if I pull it up.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know what time so we know. I'll find it.
Okay. Good. Peggy, have you been to anything that hasn't been covered?
Yeah, the Finance Committee, we've met twice this school year so far. We went over, which is on the agenda for tonight, but the Finance Committee reviewed the insurance report and renewal information and felt that that it was a solid proposal, what we will be discussing later on in the agenda. We also went over all the Prop R funds and the commitment that we made to the community and whether or not we upheld that commitment, and they are going to present their findings at the next board meeting on the 12th of October. I asked them if they would come and sort of let the community know whether we kept our promises or not, and I will not do a spoiler, but you know, I think it'll be a good presentation.
Did the butler do it?
And so, and then I'm also on the communication committee, and I actually missed last night's meeting due to a death in my family, but they are coming together to present to the board eventually on all of their ideas they're collaborating about with how we can communicate better as a district, possibly how to make our image better, and just general communication ideas.
There'll be an update on that group's progress on the 12th.
On the 12th too, okay. Okay. And you guys have all touched on all the committees that I sit on as well, so I won't add any more. Deanna, if you want to come up and we'll recognize your other student.
Thank you so much for going back to
Absolutely.
Riley was able to make it with us, so Riley Parisi will come up. Riley Parisi is a student at Rogers Elementary School. She is she is kind to every student, classmate, teacher, and staff member every day. She goes out of her way to help others on a regular basis, and she is a glowing example of kindness to all who know her.
Congratulations.
Could we get the other two also to come join her in this photo so we have them all in one photo?
Thank you.
Are they gone? Okay.
Nope, they're there.
No, they're still here. Great.
Yeah, instead of doing two. Okay.
Okay, we're going to move on to action items by consent. We have A, B, C, D, and E, which are reading of minutes of previous meetings, financials for July, warrants for August and September, approval of resignations, leave contracts, and employee hires, and our bus route approval. Can I get an approval or a motion for action items by consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin, you second?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our professional development report. Hello, Dr. Plummer.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Give me my PowerPoint, please. Oh, thanks. This evening, I'm going to present to you our professional development plan for the 2017-2018 school year. When we look at our professional development plan, we use our strategic plan goals, which is student preparation, teacher support, and effective and efficient as the goals that we focus on to develop our plan for the year. So I've broken this into two parts. I've broken it into curriculum-specific things that we're working on, and then I broke it into the other things that are big three rocks that we've been working on as a district. When we look at our curriculum implementation professional development, last year we started to implement the Lucy Calkins units of study at our elementary schools, which is reading and writing work that we're doing K through 5. And this summer we had this wonderful opportunity to host Lucy Calkins Reading and Writing Institute. And we had approximately 50 teachers, K2, and 50 teachers 3-5 who attended that 4-day institute during July, which was wonderful. There's been really positive feedback about that training. In addition to that, all of our new teachers, we brought Lucy Calkins in and did a 1-day reading training and a 1-day writing training for all new elementary teachers to support their implementation since they were not here last year when we started the program. We have also started to expand some support and training for our English language arts work that we did last year at middle school and high school with the Gateway Writing Project. All middle school and high school teachers are having training on our district professional development days this year, in addition to 2 extra days where they will be out of their classroom and we will provide some additional training for them. Math, different areas we're working on with math. We have the elementary curriculum revision team. We did move that up. If you guys remember, we moved that up a year in our process. We have started that work. We've had 2 days already of work. We brought in Mike Flynn, who is an expert in a mathematics professor on the East Coast, and he did 2 intense days of training on the 8 mathematical practices. And then from that, we're going to continue to do work with 32 teachers across the district in training and support in the development of vertical alignment of units tied to those mathematical practices and changing our instructional model in math at elementary. We will have that work done by spring, and we'll be presenting that information to you later in the spring, probably May, when we'll be ready to present that to you. In addition to that, we're doing our DE Math Innovator Program for elementary and middle school. That is a 4th and a 5th grade teacher from every elementary school and a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teacher from each middle school that are getting 3 additional days of support and training, and they're getting 6 days of coaching that I'll talk a little bit more about later. And then we also had about 50 teachers attend Added Up, a math summit that was held at Fox High School this summer. That was K through 12 teachers. And I have heard nothing but phenomenal things about the Added Up conference. There were national presenters that were in town. Graham Fletcher, who is a name who's, if people know math, they know the name Graham Fletcher. Wonderful presentations, a lot of positive feedback, and many of those people are now serving on that elementary curriculum revision committee and are also part of the Innovator group that are participating in our DE Math Innovator program. With science, we have our middle school curriculum revision team that has started working on a vertical alignment based on the work we did last year with K through 5. We brought in some support from outside to help with understanding of the standards. We've already done 2 days of work with that team, and they are well on their way to revising and editing the middle school curriculum, which we will once again, that'll be presented to you guys this spring. And then to support our elementary science work that we did last year, our focus for elementary on district professional development days this year is on our MySci science program. And I actually had the opportunity today, myself and Lindsay Roy, our STEM coordinator, along with 2 of the writers of the MySci work from Washington University. We went to 3 different elementary schools today and toured classrooms and had a great opportunity to see the work that's going on. That's going to be an ongoing process where they're going to come in, they're going to walk buildings with us. We walked with principals as well. And we are going to give feedback to teachers on what we're seeing. They can also then provide additional coaching and support to teachers based on anything that they feel they need. But I tweeted, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I tweeted out a couple of pictures actually when I was out today. There were kids building walls so that they could prevent erosion in a sand pit. It was just, they were having so much fun. It was fun having conversations with them. So good stuff going on is what I guess I want to say I was seeing. With that work, this is just a visual of the financial backing that from our Prop R funds and from our title funds that I'll talk a little bit more about that are supporting all of those different programs. When we think about continuous support, what are we doing in addition to the things I already talked about? So we did the units of study work this summer. How are we going to continue to provide support to teachers throughout the year? We are providing, based on feedback from teachers, some specific smaller group trainings at grade levels based on word study, interactive read aloud, and shared reading, which are new things that they are implementing this year, K through 2. And then 3 through 5 teachers are doing word study training. Along with that, we have our 2 district literacy coaches, along with Sarah Farner, that are out in buildings coaching and supporting teachers on a regular basis. With our Gateway Writing Project, in addition to that training I told you about, we have 24 middle school English language arts teachers and 8 high school teachers who are going to be getting additional coaching from the Gateway Writing Project, which is, I don't think I mentioned this, that is actually a partnership with University of Missouri St. Louis, and they will be coming in and providing additional support to teachers that have chosen to be part of that coaching model. And that happens 6 times throughout the year. And that is a 3-year commitment that we have made with Gateway Writing Project. Elementary curriculum, I've already kind of shared that, what we're doing in the next steps. The DE Math Innovator Program, along with the 3 days of training, we'll have 6 days of coaching that will go on throughout the year. When I was out actually visiting a school today for the science, one of our coaches was in at Beasley and had been meeting with the 4th grade and 5th grade teacher at Beasley today, getting to know them and starting that relationship and starting that coaching practice at Beasley today. With middle school science, what we'll be doing is after we complete our curriculum work like we did last year with elementary, they will then be developing what training and supports they think we need to have moving forward for the rest of the middle school science teachers next year to support implementation of the work that we do this school year. And I kind of already explained the MySci stuff, what we saw today, and how that additional support will happen. The MySci training, coaching, and support actually is a 5-year commitment that we've made with them when we did that adoption this school year. In addition to that, we have our 3 big core things that we've done as a district. We have our continuous classroom improvement, we have our STEM education program, and we have our engagement. When we talk about our continuous classroom improvement, we have our elementary schools divided into 3 cohorts. Last year, we started with cohort 1. That was Beasley, Forder, Beerbaum, and thank you. I knew you were back there. That's why I looked. Woolland. Those 4 schools started last summer. They had 2 days of training, and then they had 4 days of coaching through the school year. This year, we added 3 new schools, which was Oakville Elementary, Blades, and Troutline. They had 2 days of training this summer, and they will have 4 days of coaching this year. Then how we layered on, in addition for cohort 1 this summer, is they had an additional day of training, and then we did something really exciting on August the 11th. Our cohort 1 teachers presented to all staff who were, if they were part of cohort 1 and they weren't presenting, or part of cohort 2, they presented best ideas and strategies that they had learned over the last year through their practices to the rest of the staff. And then cohort 2 had leadership team training this summer as well. With our STEM education, we're doing kind of a multitude of things. We have our STEM TQ, which is our Teacher Quality Initiative, which is part of a relationship with Washington University Institute for School Partnerships. And over the last 3 summers, we've had over 50 teachers who've participated in that program. It's 2 intense weeks of training in the summer, and then they have training throughout the school year. They have meetings at the end of the day. They're here from like 4 to 6 or 7 o'clock at night and get additional support and training for an entire year to support that implementation. We also did offer again this summer the 3 days of STEM training for all middle school teachers, and then our continuation of our STEM Innovator Program and our support for our administrators as well. With student engagement, we finished our last schools, our 2 high schools, and Point, Rogers, and Hegeman did days 4 and 5 of Kagan training, and they will have continued coaching throughout this school year. This is the financial support that we put into those programs for the summer and for this year. When we look at, this year was a little bit different. We had the 11th of August was a district professional development day, so all staff did attend that day. The week of August 7th through 10th, when those other trainings were going on, that was voluntary for teachers to attend. We did have 75% of our staff who did choose to attend those trainings, which we feel was good. We were happy with that. When we look at our overall teacher satisfaction for the training for this summer, that's broken out. We've developed kind of a survey that we've been using the last few years, and it's broken out by level of engagement. The green bars are the excellent and good, and the fair and poor are the red. We have their ability to answer questions, their overall satisfaction, and then I did add an additional bar in because I thought this was important. When you look at the last one, which was a yes-no question, it was, were the goals of the PD session met? And when you look at that, almost 90% of teachers, 88% of teachers who completed the survey said they did feel the goals were met. We would have liked to have seen the teacher satisfaction rating higher, and we do take all feedback, and we use that to help us design and develop as we move forward for training for in the future. And now, I think it'll work this year. We're going to have a quick video of our summer PD.
Today we have delved right into what does student assessment look like and how can they embrace assessment from the standpoint of a student-centered approach.
The training that I receive from Discovery Education I use in my classroom every day. It helps me plan STEAM lessons for my students. It also helps me incorporate the 4 C's into all of my lessons.
So we use a lot of communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication among our students.
Ultimately, it's not the product that the students come up with, it's the process they go through to get to that final product. They love the STEAM lessons and they love getting up, moving around the classroom, building things, making things, trial and error.
It's gotten me off of that sticking point of I need everybody to do the same lab and come to the same results with that.
So they walk out really having an experience rather than just having facts thrown at them.
Kagan's primary focus is increasing student engagement in the classroom setting. And so what we show teachers is we show them structures which provide a set of procedures for students to follow for collaboration in the classroom.
So using the structures in my classroom looks a little bit different each day. And so some days kids are working in groups of 4, sometimes they're working in groups of 2. So they're moving around the room and they're supporting each other's learning.
If I have them all talk to their neighbor instead of just answering one at a time, I just notice so much more engagement within the classroom.
I've used it as a way for them to help create their own learning and as a way to sort of build it up. Rather than me teach them a strategy, they get to sort of create it on their own and use each other to help create their learning.
Sometimes it's great because those kids that struggle with learning, they get to be the teacher, which boosts their confidence. And then sometimes those kids that need that extra help are able to get that help from their peers.
I think for the kids, it's really brought back that accountability for them. So if they're going to be answering a question in my classroom, they know they're all going to have to answer that question. They're accountable to their teammates.
It's less of me teaching and more of them helping each other learn.
So you're not a teacher anymore, you're a facilitator.
If I'm doing my job right, yeah.
I know that higher levels of engagement are happening all over my room. So if I am over in the corner working with a student, I know that all of the other students in my classroom are still on task and learning, and I can feel comfort knowing I can give this child the individualized attention they need, knowing all others are still on task.
I'm helping the teachers understand how to help you, the student, become more aware of what works for them, to help them become more aware of the teaching and learning system as a whole.
I'm really excited about the CCI because it is really putting the data in the hands of kids. We make a goal that they want to work on. Students do writing, reading, math, and behavior, and then we track it throughout the year.
Each week we do personal graphing and we keep our own data, and then we all together study it as a class to see who is making gains in that area.
They're like getting really excited about graphing it. They're like, I only got this many wrong this past week, and now I'm up to this many wrong, and I'm improving. And so it's really helped to focus on the individual student and working on meeting their potential, and then having the students individually work together then as a whole to meet the classroom goal or the school-wide goal. It's not just me saying, okay, these are our goals, these are what we're working towards. The kids are making the goals as well, and so it's really just everyone coming together.
They're very aware of where they are and what they need to be working on.
So there's no surprise?
No surprise.
So then how are we continuing to support the teachers based on what you just saw from their summer professional development? I talked a little bit about this. For our schools that were already CCI schools, they get 3 days of coaching this year, and Terry, who you heard speaking, our friend from Texas who's been with us for over a year, she does all of our training and coaching for our entire district, so there's that consistency across the district. She will be coming in, and she works with the principals, and they decide if they want to do small group training at their building, if they do building walks, a combination of those things, whatever they need to support implementation of CCI. Our new schools get an additional day. They do 4 days of coaching, so they have that additional day to support them. We did actually add an additional day at Woolwyn for this year as well, because they had 10 new staff members, so there was so many new staff that I worked with Dr. Meschke, and we decided that they needed that additional support. So we're trying to find ways when there are turnovers in staff where they need that additional support to provide that as well. STEM, we talked about this as well. The 8 STEM innovators from each middle school, so we have 32 STEM innovators. They're on year 2 of their journey. 3 additional days of training for them and 12 days of coaching at each middle school. They each get 6 days of coaching, but the coach is actually there. Kristen is there for 12 days. The same coach and the same trainer works with all of our STEM innovators across the district, and they're now doing what's called a +1. So each innovator has selected another staff member, or they've kind of jointly decided that they're going to work together to start to learn and gain knowledge from the work that's going on with the STEM innovators. With our student engagement, we have 2 additional days of coaching for each elementary school and 4 days of coaching for each high school, because the high schools are obviously a much larger staff, to give them some additional support and feedback. The coaches come, they walk the building. It's the people who did their training this summer, and they walk the building with administrators. They provide support to teachers. At times they'll jump right in and even provide support right there as the teacher is presenting. We have really tried over the last few years to increase the number of hours of professional development in our district, and I think we've decided we're kind of at the point where it's going to take something really big for us to get any more than we have. We, this year, are up to 45 hours of embedded professional development in the district calendar. So that's stuff that we are doing within school hours. So we are excited about that. With the addition of August 11th this year, that was 6 additional hours of professional development. And then when you look just at the big picture of our funding for professional development, Title II, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in that presentation, those funds have continued to drop. We're at $200,000, a little over that. Perkins funds, which are specific to Project Lead the Way, courses like that at high school, those funds can only be used for those programs. And then Title III funds, which is for our English language learners. I'll talk more about that later. And then we are very happy and proud of the Prop R funds that we've been able to, for the last 2 years, to have to support our professional development. Questions? Who would like to start?
I have some. Go ahead. Can I start? I feel like not sitting by my microphone, but if I move all my stuff out of the way, it looks like I have an agenda. I really don't. Wow, right? That's a lot. So congratulations to you and your team and all of the participants and employees who have really taken this kind of by storm, which is great. I feel like I share a little bit of the same energy and that everybody is really wanting to get it there. And I think working really hard. I thought it was great to see the passion in that video with regard to the teachers being very committed to teaching and learning and being really excited about it. And I think that that was a really great way to show the level of engagement at that level. I had one question and then I had just a slight tangent, but it is still curriculum related. I wanted to just inquire, in the very beginning of the presentation, you had touched on the math piece, and I do see that it is identified from an elementary and middle school perspective, but I think you talked more heavily about the implementation of the change in math in the elementary, at the elementary level, and I know we switched things up last year based on our test scores. Can you just refresh my memory, and you might have said it and I missed it, when are we expecting all of that math change, curriculum development to get to that middle school level, or is it already there and I've just overlooked it?
Middle school did their curriculum revision
the year before. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So
We're just providing additional, we're just providing additional training and support to them through this model.
Just to continue that learning program.
Yes.
Okay. Terrific.
Yes.
Thank you for that refresher.
Yes.
I figured, I know when we talked about it as a board, our big concern was, well, here we are at elementary and we can't miss the boat on that. And I know y'all did a lot of shifting around. Something that we're not really prepared to have a great deal of conversation about tonight, and I'm not expecting that, but I want to just throw it out there so we can circle back around to the idea with the notion of professional development around, again, this is a little selfish, I think, but it really is for the bigger picture of the students too. How are we preparing for students to transition into that middle school level that are coming from a primary problem-based learning atmosphere? I mean, I look at that and think, what a great opportunity for a school in a school if we look at a middle school piece, right? We have children who are going to be coming out of Mosaic, and we need to address that, and I would love to hear more about it. I'm sure it's probably being discussed and planned, but knowing that I have a year and a half before I need to worry about my little guy continuing in that educational setting that he's really enjoying, I would like to learn more about that as you all are ready to present it, but I had that thought because that, of course, is going to take some professional development in order to be able to prepare our faculty to move those students in there, in addition to environmental changes. I know, I'm just going to continue. He's like giving me the Oscars get off the stage look, but I'm not done.
I'm just going to say.
Totally.
He's like, did you hear the music start playing?
I totally did not. I was ignoring it.
It's,
I still had another question, but it's okay.
Wait till 7C.
Okay, that's a little sooner than I thought we'd have that conversation. We're gonna wait, now I have to, okay, so is that also gonna address my next question, which is the 5th grade Mosaic opportunity plan? Yes, am I on hold for 7C for that also?
No, there will be 5th grade.
5th grade.
That was the plan all along, so.
Well, I know, but I haven't heard anything about when, what, how. So I'm just assuming it's, oh my, wow.
No, actually this week we did pose the question of what's going to be our timeline for selection of those two teachers.
And that's what I'm wondering is, you know, it's already September and really next year is about 10 minutes away when you're thinking about facilities and construction and going down that road and making sure the right teachers are chosen and all of those kinds of pieces. And so, okay, fine. Since I have been put off to 7C, I'll stop. Nicely done.
I will tell you though, Lisa, with the work we're doing with STEM, a lot of the work they're doing actually is on, this year, they're focusing on project-based learning as a whole staff. So that is something that they are doing that will be for all middle school kids.
And thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a point I had here that I wanted to note, and I don't know, my thoughts were averted. I did see that really in everything that you were talking about, and certainly in the video, that there's a flavor of PBL really in all of these initiatives, which of course will reinforce for all students that environment of learning. We're not, my points of bringing up what's happening with Mosaic and that transfer is not to just focus on those students. You know, obviously we're looking at this district-wide and really what benefits all students in their learning environment and pedagogy, but I wanted to just note that we do see that PBL piece for everybody, because 100% or 75% or however you want to divide it up, PBL doesn't work for everybody. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, turn it over.
I'm stopping.
Dr. Plummer, I just wanted to mention that I'm so pleased to see that the professional development has doubled since 2014-15, and I just can't wait. I'm very anxious to see the results. And as a side note, when is that first benchmark testing done?
Benchmark testing was already done. The pre-assessment testing was done the first few weeks of school.
Okay. And then the next one will be in February, is that correct?
No.
You're going to see some of that tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so you're on hold too.
Okay.
7C.
7C.
I now have someone who assists me with those things. Mr. Smith's going to help out with that.
I'm starting to think maybe we just ought to move on, and then we'll all just ask the rest of the questions.
Can we just go to
7C,
7C, please?
Can we jump ahead? All right, so you're on hold too. Yeah. Kevin, do you have anything?
I'm just going to wait till 7C.
Good choice.
I am too at this point. So.
The one comment I wanted to make, I like the way it's laid out. I really like the comments you made about the long-term relationships that we have and the ability for help to come in and another set of eyes and to do observations, which seems to me a very effective way to do corrective action. Are there any other type of metrics? He's going to say 7C. Are there any other type of metrics that you think are going to surface from this experience?
Actually, that is something we're working on as part of our strategic plan, which is that what 7C is?
Yeah.
They don't. So I kind of laugh as I say that. Yes, there are some other things that we are doing, but like for example, with the work we would do with Discovery Ed, with the math innovators and the STEM innovators, they are doing constant collection of like teacher data through their observations, feedback from teachers, and then just the actual the notations that they take. I know today, whenever I was at Beasley, you are still here. She met with the coach at Beasley after we were done, the person who was there working with the teacher. So there's that constant conversation also, so that ongoing feedback between administrator, coach, and teachers who are getting the support. So there's some of that. We're going to be doing some work with IPI, which Mr. Smith's going to talk about, which is going to give us a measurement on our student engagement level. We're going to be doing that at all of our schools. He's going to talk about that as part of 7C. And
C.2, C.3.
It'll be long.
I'm trying to think of anything else. I think those are the big things.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do have a couple questions that I'm going to risk the fact that they're not going to be in 7C. Do we do Lucy Calkins at the middle school level?
We actually, Lucy Calkins does not have complete units of study at the middle school.
Okay.
But with our adoption that we did do for middle school this year, because we did review ELA, we did purchase the writing units of study that were available for middle school. And then part of that training we're doing with Gateway Writing Project is on changing, shifting how reading and writing is done at middle school as well.
Okay. And then as far as the overall satisfaction rates, what were they last year? I want to say they were about the same.
They were a little bit higher.
Okay.
They were.
So when we look at the low rates as far as satisfaction that we're getting, how much of this are they getting that's repetitive that we keep doing versus what is new? Why are we getting such a low rate?
It is not repetitive, I will tell you that. The things we are doing are not repetitive. There had been some Kagan training, but there had never been holistic Kagan training for buildings. There had been pockets of it here and there, but because we didn't have the funds for professional development. I think something to take into consideration is that there are people who only attended training on Friday, and different people's view on training and on Fridays, I think sometimes can implement. I can't make I'm making a guess. I don't really know, but that's something, because when you look at that and then you compare it to where the goals of the session met, that doesn't match up.
Right.
So when almost 90% of the people are saying, yeah, the goals were met, but I wasn't happy, I wasn't satisfied with it, there's a little bit of a mixed communication there.
Well, and I know a couple years ago when we went to, I think with the calendar committee, correct me if I'm wrong, there was the notion or the idea around putting PD on Friday afternoons, because one, it was more customer friendly to our parents. If people go out of town, things like that. So for the parents, they love that part of it. But I think what and why we ended up going away from it the next year was you have your teachers teaching all week, and now at the very, very end of the week and in the afternoon, we're gonna say, get excited for training. And it was not going well. So that's why I think we ended up flipping that and moving that date around again. So hopefully we'll see that go up. I have to give credit to those that have taken the time during the summer to take the training and to do the additional work. That's absolutely amazing that we've had that much going out just to develop their craft better. So I appreciate that. And leading into one of the conversations that we had before about half-day versus full-day PD. We knew a couple years ago that spending $100,000 on PD was not going to get us to where we were ready for full-day training yet. Is there any talk about eventually being able to move away from half-day training and going to full-day training?
That's really part of the work that Mark does with the calendar committee.
Okay.
I mean, I'm part of that committee, but those decisions are made as part of that group. And we just started meeting last week, 2 weeks ago.
So the kind of fundamental challenge with that notion is that we have, if we look at the number of kid days,
right,
that's 174, and we look at the number of teacher working days, which is 182, we only have 8 days to play with.
Okay.
So to move those half days to full days, because right now that half day is counting as a student day.
Right.
So to move from half days to full days, that either requires more contracted days,
correct,
or less student days.
Okay. And we can't have, right now, that's not feasible on either side. So, okay. That was just a conversation that we had, because we've always talked about how much parents hate half days. But we also knew too that we weren't at a place that a full day, and then there was also the conversation of a full day once every other month or whatever it may be, compared to a half a day every month, and how much more a teacher gets out of that too. So, okay. I'm good, thanks. Okay. All right. My paper back over. Berkeley Middle School again.
Thank you very much. There's a few things that I'm going to talk about today. I think they're eventually coming up. If not, I'll be able to talk about them anyway. One of the things that we are concentrating on to increase student achievement is increasing engagement in the classroom. We are going to be trained in the IPI, which is the Instructional Practices Inventory, next month, so we can come up with a baseline number for our building, or what our student engagement is, and analyze that information, kind of get with our leaders and departments in the building to come up with different ways in order for us to increase overall engagement in the classroom. For attendance, happy to say that the last 2 years we have made our 90-90 attendance. Right now we're a little bit low, but I think we've set up a lot of things, or put a lot of things in place to make sure that we will make it again this year and exceed what we've been doing. We're meet with the counselors, the administrators meeting with the counselors each week to kind of look at the kids that their attendance is dropping or it's not meeting the 90-90 to come up with parent meetings, phone calls, different things in order to make sure that all the kids are coming. My big thing is if the kids are there, it's a lot easier to teach them. So we need to get them there first. We're also at Berkeley starting out a new program with the juvenile courts, which is kind of, or it is a truancy reduction program that is to try and catch those kids before they get into the court system. And they've come up with a lot of different ways and incentives in order to help families and kids also come to school and see what the whatever problems they're having in order to get there before they end up coming to a referral to the court. We're also implementing attendance incentives for each grade level, where each grade level team is talking with the kids and coming up with different ways that the kids want incentive-wise in order to make the attendance and get the incentives, which really has helped us over the past couple years. And then also with the Mastery Connect, which is our program that we are benchmarking the kids in different areas, so the math, ELA or English, and also social studies this year to come up with a baseline number and what strategies are we implementing into the classroom once we look at and analyze the data on what different strategies inside the classroom and the other parts of the day to help those kids meet all of the benchmarks that we have set for them to achieve throughout the year. So right now you're seeing all of the numbers low in that, but they should be that way because those are all of the things that kids should know for the entire year. And this is what we tested them over the first few weeks of the year, and it is what we're teaching them over the 9 months that we have them. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So I learned about APR scores in the last year. Do you see this lowering APR scores at your school, or do you think even with the attendance in that would hold steady?
No, I do, and I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, so. The Mastery Connect?
No, more attendance, I think.
Oh.
So from just an APR standpoint, because of the malfunction with the end of course exams, we do not anticipate that middle schools will have a building level APR this year.
Really?
Really. That was the word yesterday.
Wow.
So normally we would do a test score report kind of in early November, which is even way late. But it now looks like it may be mid-November before we are able to publicly release anything because of the malfunction with the end of course exams. But those were just in the areas of Algebra 1 and English 2.
Right.
But because so many 8th graders take Algebra 1, it throws off middle school completely.
Yeah, and with what they said, that does make some sense. Okay. I withdraw my question.
Okay. That's all right.
So from a district assessment perspective, I mean, honestly, every year I feel like there's some apples to oranges thing that doesn't allow us to look at exam from last year to exam from this year, and now it's Algebra 1 and, would you say English? No.
English 2.
So I'm going to answer that by throwing a whole bunch of people under the bus.
Well, my word. I mean, how does, who's in charge of assessment?
So.
No, not here. Not here.
Wait for it.
Dr. Palmer's done a very good job explaining how she just circles back and we've got this under control, but this is large scale assessment that there continues to seem like the balls are being dropped here, that we can't do a comparison within our own district. from year to year. So when we as a board are, reviewing things or asked to approve or whatever, it's one of those things where you keep going, okay, well, what was it last year? Well, we have to throw it out. It's now an outlier, right?
Yeah, so here's the long, convoluted mess.
Is it as long as 7C?
God, I hope not. But it's a lot of history, so I'm not going to talk in terms of years and what year particular stuff happened, because I tend to get that mixed up a little bit. But for a long time, we had the same test. It was easy to compare year to year, although there was always a question of whether you could compare this year's fourth grade class to next year's fourth grade class, right? So it was as much a comparison of where your curriculum was than anything else. And for years and years, the EOC test was pretty much the same and pretty standardized. And actually, EOC test scores were typically pretty good, because the EOCs are a clear target for a particular class, whereas 3rd through 8th grade MAP was a broader spectrum. It's a mile wide and an inch deep set of concepts that are going to be tested, whereas the EOCs were much more focused. So in general, EOC test scores would be better than what you would see at elementary and middle school. So we're chugging along, and the standards change. So standards change, tests change. So then you begin to lose the ability to compare from one year to the next. And then there's this whole notion of Common Core, which, people think whatever about Common Core, but there is a sense of that Algebra 1 in suburban St. Louis should probably be the same as Algebra 1 in suburban Seattle. The kids should be doing the sort of same concept. But our legislature decided that we could not be in a consortium with a bunch of other states to develop standards, that we had to develop our very own standards. So we developed our own standards, and from those standards we had to develop new tests. But since we were the only one that had those standards, when we went to testing companies, the testing company looked at us and looked at our measly little budget and said, you don't have as much budget as this consortium of 23 states. So you're not going to get our A team of test developers, you're going to get our C team of test developers.
Who lose the data.
Who,
that's what
questionably, over time, it's not a data loss issue. The tests, the Algebra 1 and English 2 tests were valid tests. They test what the standards were. They're reliable tests. They're not comparable tests, which is hard for anybody to wrap your head around. So the best visual anybody has kind of given out was actually done yesterday. And that is, when you take the EOC, you get kind of a raw score. All right? So, you think about, you take a test, you get 45 out of 50 or whatever. That's your raw score. Well, that gets translated into a scale score for MAP statewide testing purposes. It's in the translation to the scale score, and then those scale scores to performance levels of below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced, where the malfunction is. So the scores this year cannot be compared to the prior year because of the scaling stuff. So because we have an statewide accountability system built around 3 consecutive years of data, and this particular set of 2 tests. So elementary is not impacted. Middle school is because of the 8th grade issue, and then high school is because it's Algebra 1 and English 2. Then all of that then plays into the district APRs. So all of that is having to be psychometrically and mathematically adjusted before they come out with what the numbers are. But essentially, we're in a pattern of hold harmless. However, we're about to have some more new tests, and then that'll be that test moving forward. So it's all fun and interesting and incredibly challenging to explain to anybody.
But ironically,
so we tend to blame the legislature for requiring a change in standards and then for continuously decreasing the statewide assessment budget.
But ironically, the one thing that remained the same is Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is Algebra 1, and everything around it changed, which messed up the test in the end. But the content is the same. It's Algebra 1.
Yeah. So the state is actually suing the testing company, Questar.
So to get back to the question, I guess it's not going to impact the APR really at all, which is why you withdrew your question.
Just because it doesn't impact the APR doesn't mean we're not watching.
Of course. Doesn't mean we still have to, we still have to pay attention to it. But now we're talking about heterogeneous data instead of homogeneous data, so we can't do a longer cohort comparison.
I think the irony is that the state legislature was looking at the APR as the thing that would allow charters into school districts. And now after what you explained, they completely caused a mess with that whole metric.
I mean, to some extent, so, well, not necessarily related to that topic, but, you know, there are certainly those with very strong feelings that definitely lay this at the foot of the legislature and the budget. You know, you're not going to spend money. I mean, we know that this year. I mean, they took money away for ACT testing. So, you know, the assessment budget and, you know, your test is going to be as good as what you spend on it. You know, you get what you pay for. We're not paying much. So we're getting, you know, kind of the C team and whatever. But for a number of months, there have been a group working on could we do assessment differently in Missouri? Because there are some allowabilities under ESSA. So Pattonville's really been leading the effort in that regard. Big powwow last week on it and what direction we were gonna, that the group was gonna be heading, and trying to form a group of schools to try to be that pilot for a different sort of assessment system. So there's another big powwow next Friday. Dr. Plummer's going, and we'll decide if we want to be a part of that group or not within the next little bit. And are we going to be part of the group that helps shape what assessment might look like in Missouri, or are we going to, you know, continue to let it happen to us? But part of that then is also a question of, do we have the internal capacity to be able to be part of that?
Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
He did a better job.
Totally like
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate the information. All right, we will move on to our insurance report.
So Peggy mentioned she was at the meeting, so I'll let her do all of this. So Marshall couldn't be here tonight because he got a scholarship. He was nominated for a scholarship to go to the Association of School Business Officials big conference. So he's going there, got a scholarship to go. So he left this to me. So I'm gonna run through the data piece relatively quickly. So here is just, you know, kind of the history of what we put in the insurance fund and what the claims are. So in essence, you know, kind of the notion of this is what our claims experience is. And for us, because we're self-funded, if we have claims experience below 100, our fund balances would rise. And if we have claims experience above 100, our fund balances would go down. This is not the fund balances that we talk about when we talk about the budget and the ASBR, but this is a separate just insurance fund. So here you can kind of see what our rates are for all the plans that we offer. We offer we offer a district the amount, the plan the district pays for. Then there's an HSA plan that is a little bit cheaper. So on that, we contribute to the employees' HSA. And then there's additionally a buy-up plan. So employees pay a little bit more to get into that higher plan. And here you can see all of the critical elements of all of those plans and what all of that is, and you know what deductibles and all copays and all that stuff relates to. And you can see that, you know, for us, our plan year aligns with the calendar year. That isn't the case in all school districts, but we have that, which to some extent makes that a little bit simpler. So we also have the piece for our 9-month employees and rates for retirees. So this is what the trend for the insurance fund balance has been. Part of that was due to some big changes to the plan. You can see that would have happened around 2015. We've not made changes to the plan the last couple of years, and you can see that our loss ratios have been improving. And then this is the anticipation of what would happen to the fund, assuming that claims experiences went over 100%, continued to be over 100%, and nothing was done. I tend to think we would actually do something if that was going to be the trend, but evidently, historically, that was not the case.
No, it wasn't.
Because as the funds were falling to that 2014 level, nothing was being done, which that kind of blows my mind, but you know, that's kind of what it's been. So what we're asking for then is approval of the existing plan or these renewals with no change to medical and dental rates.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Anybody have any questions? No?
So I think it should be noted, I know you just said this, but I mean, what that means is that there is no change to our employees for what they have to pay into it. And I think that's something to note, that the general rule in most corporations is, in most insurance policies, is going up 40% and drastic amounts. So I think this is a good...
As a matter of fact, Peggy, as I recall at the last insurance meeting that I was at, the fact that it was doing so well, it was going to make something available to that at a better cost. Was it the deductibles or the copays or something that they were looking into improving?
There have been some slight tweaks to, not the copays, but added some minor added benefits.
Oh, okay.
In some of the pieces.
I knew there was something that we added to the benefits of the employees because of the fact that we have stabilized the insurance program or the fund.
But, I mean, there were little changes.
Yeah, but, well, hey, that's good. Something's better than nothing.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our federal programs dashboard. And this is not 7C.
No. 7B.
Getting close, though.
I just want everyone to know Dr. Tretter Larkin is at Billy Joel's, so I am doing She's going to kill me for saying that.
This is just a night of throwing everybody under the bus.
So we talked
scholarship. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a Billy Joel.
I'm going to tell her to make sure she rewinds and watches the video. So federal programs are our Title I, Title II, and Title III supports that we get from the federal government for different programs that we have in our district. When we talk about Title I, the funding, we choose to use that for our reading services for students, and we have selected 3 schools that we provide support to through our Title I funds. That is Beasley Elementary, Forder Elementary, and Bierbaum Elementary. Through those funds, we have 235 students who are serviced for support, and we have 4 reading teachers at Bierbaum, 3 teachers at Forder, and 3 reading teachers at Beasley, in addition to a half of an interventionist at Beasley that are paid from those title funds. We are also required to have specific set-asides. We have to have 1% of the funds at least that go to parent involvement. We hold parent meetings 4 times throughout the year. They've actually started to combine those meetings, and they have found those to be much more successful by combining the schools and having a bigger turnout at those meetings. It's been a lot more powerful. And then we're also required to set aside homeless funds for our students. The non-public set-aside we have to do, that is an automatic. They tell us what we have to set aside for non-public services, and students who live in one of those 3 schools and attend a non-public school that have applied to receive Title I funds can get services if they qualify. But they have to live in either Beerbaum, Forder, or Beasley, and their school they attend has to have applied to DESE for those funds. Title II is our next pot of money that we get from the federal government. That is our professional development funds, and as we talked about, those funds have actually decreased over the last several years. We have decided this year that we're putting all of those funds actually into purchase services, and we are using those funds for part of our Math Innovator program and our elementary science MySci professional development training that we're doing with our staff. And we also do have to do a set-aside for non-public schools, and how that set-aside works is for schools that are in Mehlville boundaries, they qualify for Title II funds. They also do have to apply though, and it's on them to apply to DESE, and then we have to approve it, and it's on them to make sure they include their exact enrollment numbers. So for example, this year, one of our non-publics put down their wrong enrollment, so they didn't get as much funds as they would have, but that falls back on the non-public school. So that is something that's an automatic, that's a set-aside as well, based on their enrollment numbers.
From a federal budget standpoint, the president's budget proposal completely wiped out Title II.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at one point this summer, we didn't think we were getting, well, as we talked about back in the spring, we didn't think we were getting any Title II funds, and other funds were looking like much less than what we ended up getting. Title III are for our English language learner program, and currently we have 1,221 students in our district that are being serviced through those EL services, which is 12% of our student population. Now that does not include the number of students who are not being serviced, who additionally qualify, and I don't have that exact number, I apologize. But the ones we are servicing has actually gone up by 200 students for the students being serviced for this school year. From the Title III funds, we are paying for a paraprofessional at 2 of our schools. We are paying for Durgitza, part of Durgitza's salary. She's our language translator. Some of you might be familiar with her. She's well known in our district. And then part of an instructional coach position that we have for our English language learner teachers. In addition to that, we are doing some co-teacher training with our English language learner teachers and our general education teachers. And that's a program that we've been doing for at least 2 years. Jeff, is that right? 2 years. The last 2 years we've done that training, so we're continuing that training with teachers. And then when you look at our overall budgets, I wanted to share this with you because if you remember back in the spring, I came to you and we expected a significant shortfall in our Title I funds. At that time, they were predicting we were going to have under $800,000 in Title I funds, and that did increase by about $200,000. It's not back to the level we were at one point, but it was much more than we originally expected, which actually did allow us to, we're going to be able to put a little bit of money aside for some professional development and for some additional training for title buildings, which we have not been able to do the last couple of years. Questions?
I had one question. Yeah. I think it's a point of clarification for, I don't know, you or Jeff. So you had mentioned for the English language learner students, it's about 12% of our population that we're currently servicing. Mm-hmm. But that there might be a larger opportunity. How do students receive those services, and how would we not miss them as a fault of ours, but how is there a portion of our students who could use that service who aren't getting the service? Do they apply for it, or what, testing, or if you could clarify, that would be great.
We do testing, and then parents have to agree to services.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Much like with our IEPs.
Yes.
Okay.
We're required, every student does receive service. So it's not like in reading where there's a wait list. So we're required by law that all students have to receive service. When we talk about staffing and instruction, it's how much instruction we can provide and support those students.
So it's not as if we're not providing the service, it's that they're getting a level of service, but for some students we're providing additional service over and above that based on their need and their familial agreement, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I figured there was something else there.
Any other questions?
I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Now you get 7C.
Finally.
All right, so we're going to break 7C into two pieces. So you'll recall roughly about a year or so ago, we had shown you on strategy. That was a new piece that we were using. And with our staffing, we found it difficult to maintain and continue to have updated information in there. So that was part of our realignment. So with that realignment, our Executive Director of Planning and Development is kind of charged with monitoring and keeping track of data around our strategic plan. So you saw Berkeley earlier, that was from on strategy. So we have now working to moving towards building dashboards within on strategy. So Brian Smith's going to go through that piece, and then I'll talk about some more global things.
Okay. So the global stuff, obviously, I'll leave with Dr. Gaines, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to address you a little bit tonight about the strategic plan. What I'd like to be able to do is take you through just an overview of the data, try to keep it simple, try to keep it relatively short. There is a piece on our websites, and there will be complete pieces on our websites tomorrow. Let me step into this to make sure you can all hear me. So when you take a look at our website, there are a couple places I'm going to just highlight for you to kind of show off what the program does. So on our overall district website, and you can check this either now or you can check this later or even at some point in time tomorrow, you'll see that there are links to our strategic plan. And the strategic plan was adopted in February of 2015. So this is a plan that you have approved, and it's the 3 goals that deal with overall student achievement, teacher support, and effective and efficient. That's language that you've heard before. So when you click on links, you can find that the strategic plan is part of our district website. It's posted everywhere, and it's what I've been tasked to really be able to spend a good chunk of my time doing. To show off the actual program of On Strategy is where I wanted to take a minute to be able to kind of highlight this tonight. So there are 2 views that you're going to see. One view is the district view, and you can kind of see that this platform looks very similar to what Mr. Kern showed before. And the district view highlights the 9 goals, and these 9 goals were goals that we established in early August that, when I say we, it was a collective effort amongst all of our building administrators from pre-K through 12. And so the goals that you see here aren't necessarily goals that central office said, well, we really feel like this is something that we need to be doing. These are goals that our building administrators said, this is what we need to be doing at our building levels in order to be able to make solid achievement gains. And the things that we're talking about include reading, math, engagement, and attendance, as well as other things at the high school level like post-secondary placement, ACT scores, and most importantly, getting students to the end and getting them graduated and walking across the stage. So you can see here just one piece at a time, and tomorrow there will be links across all of the websites in terms of not only the district website, but also each of the individual building websites that will have 2 links. One will go to the district overall information that you see here, and the other one will go out to the individual building dashboard, which may look a little different because elementary goals and middle school goals and high school goals are a little different. Some of them are the same and end up having an impact at pre-K through 12. Others are just 9-12. And so the dashboards that you will see will overall populate each time that I make a change or the building principals make a change. As part of this system, it's not just about me having the permissions in which to be able to do this, although I don't mind doing it. It's also to be able to teach our building principals as well as our building secretaries how to be involved in this, and not just to
empower them, but to also really create a sense of ownership. So not only do I have the ability to change certain numbers in here, the building principals have the ability in which to be able to change things just among their dashboard. And that can include things like Mastery Connect, which can give us math scores. It can also give us reading scores in science, but our focus there is really with math. It can also give us things that we're looking at like NSGRA results, running records, at the elementary levels for reading levels. And so all of this information is really live and up to date. And so when you click on any particular one, so for example, we talked attendance before, when you click on it, and it's early in the year, we're only 5 weeks or so in, we won't have a complete picture month to month, but once you click on it, it will also give you some additional data. On virtually all these boxes too, it will tell you when it was updated and how often we report out on that. So for example, attendance, we report out monthly. Or if you take another example and you say, well, we talked about Master Connect, let's talk about Master Connect here, overall. You can click on certain things and you can see things get highlighted. You can see kind of how far we are deviating from our overall goal. Or if we're above the overall goal, you can see timelines. And again, you can hover over a box that will tell you more information specifically about it, as well as when do we report on that. So some things we report on once a year, some things we report on twice a year, some things we report on weekly. And so overall, each and every single one of these pieces of the district plan will be a part of that overall puzzle. I also talked about specifically building plans, and I just want to highlight two very quickly. One would be Mehlville High School. And so again, when you go to their website, you'll find it consistently located in the bottom left-hand corner. Not all the buildings are built yet because that will be coming tomorrow. This all drives on external links. So basically that means when I update information, we build out external links, we do the legwork up front. So anytime I change a number, it repopulates all the individual dashboards with one click, as opposed to going into 19 different websites and trying to be able to do that 19 times. So it's a little bit more about working a little smarter and being a little bit more efficient with that. But when you click on the overall dashboard for Mehlville High, you will see that their information is a little different, and you'll notice it's also color-coded. The greens mean that we're on target, basically, at this point of the year. The yellows mean we're going to keep an eye on that a little bit, and the reds are going to be things where it's like, okay, we really have to be a little bit more critical as to attention to that. The reds that you typically see right now are also things that simply are overall achievement levels. And so it's early in the year, pre-testing is essentially done. We have roughly 30 more weeks with our kids. And so a lot can happen within that time. And so we do expect, over the course of time, those will continue to go up. And then as well as if we take a look at Rogers Elementary from an elementary perspective, and you will see, again, a slightly different view of the dashboard, but again, located consistently in the same place. And so overall, what you'll see there, the zeros that are currently there, if you're like, okay, Brian, what's going on with these zeros? If you hover in over the box, you can see there's a to be reported on date. We are still waiting officially on the results, and they're trickling in, but we won't officially, we'll have the results next week. And so there are zeros until I get a chance to actually get some scores. So, but you can see the overall scores at the elementary levels. They include reading scores, they include attendance, they include math scores, as well as the IPI, which is the engagement piece in which we're providing training early next month to all of our building administrators. So overall, this has been a process that's been around since about February of 2015. We used it a fair amount in 15-16. We didn't use it as much during the course of 16-17. And so now we are in it full force. And so part of this is the numbers, but more importantly, I think the biggest piece to this is what do we do with the numbers? When I get this data back, part of my job is then to be able to assist building principals to know, what do you do with this? What kind of improvements do you make? How do you group kids? What does this number mean? So that we can start incorporating better instructional strategies, grouping kids better, and providing access to different types of things that maybe, just maybe, we weren't necessarily doing before. And so that's part of, my job description, I guess, is kind of like problem solver. And so, it's the data is fine. I can analyze it just as much as anybody, but it's being a problem solver and to help individual buildings and principals know how to take this information and to really start to do something with it. So I'll defer to Dr. Gaines and more of the global approach to what we've been doing.
So, sorry, he looked at me and gave me a nod. Can I go?
Yes, you can, please.
So it'll be interesting. Dr. Plummer presented data that 75% of our teachers came to the extra PD in the summer, which is terrific. I assume we know which schools those teachers are from. It will be fascinating to see if there are any performance differences in some of these targeted areas, knowing that we have extra PD in some areas, in some schools, et cetera. I don't know if the N is large enough at, just pull trout wine out of the hat. Were there only 2 more teachers? Was there only 1 more teacher? Were there 10? That would certainly have an influence on whether or not there was enough impact of that extra 75% in that school to make a difference in the performance. But I think it would be an interesting variable to look at.
You're looking for trout wine actually had our highest participation.
Totally looking for correlation. Of course they did. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, I'm a little biased. That's where my kids used to go to school.
Okay.
Everybody else is good too, just for the record. Sorry.
You can leave.
I know. Seriously, not playing favorites.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right. The much anticipated 7C.
At this point, you kind of know if I'm getting up. It may be something a little different,
I thought
right?
that was it.
Yeah, right? We're going to be disappointed now.
Well, you never know, right?
Is your mic on?
You never know. I don't know. I think, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. I'll make sure my phone's off. Okay. So, if we go back in history, I guess, to some extent, the first time I kind of got up off the table and stood out like this was back there, and we laid out some crazy ideas in January of 2016. And we've done pretty well at putting some of those pieces in place, but some of those pieces way out in the future were just nebulous concepts that we thought, maybe we can do that, so we're going to put it on here, and as we get closer, we'll try to figure out what that looks like. So, as we've kind of looked around that big monster grid, we have continued to layer in pieces and to update pieces, right? So it looks like something like this. It's kind of all over the place. And we keep getting rid of the old years. We keep adding the new years. So let's look at that maybe in a little bit more detail in kind of bits and pieces of sections. So it's really a document for us internally that's got all of the pieces kind of in one place. So a lot of that is, what are we doing capital-wise? What are we doing with these big summer projects, and how are we funding them? Well, we've kind of got 3 funding streams right now in that regard. So we've got all the stuff that we did this summer. We went over with the facilities committee, and we've got this tentative plan for the next few years. Fairly detailed for next year, summer of 18, fairly detailed for their summer of 19. As we get a little bit further out, we know what we're going to do in terms of some big projects, but some of the smaller projects were still to be determined, because we want to be agile enough and flexible enough so that if something breaks or conditions change, we can adjust to that. But the big projects in and of themselves will probably remain the same. But we've been able to move some stuff in and out. From a curriculum and textbook purchase piece, we've got that plan. It's laid out over a 10-year period. So curriculum 1 year, adopt the textbooks to put in place for the next year. That's unchanged. We've seen that. The staff development piece funded by Prop R, Dr. Plummer went through that. But we knew that when we did that, we had some pieces that were ending, and we had some to be determined pieces. So that's the yellow pieces. So as elementary cohort 1 completes CCI training, what is the next phase for them? We have some possibilities of ideas, but for now we've got that as to be determined. Same thing as a high school finishes up K-game. So for high school especially, we hope that we'll probably have where we're going to be headed in that direction, probably by Christmas, hopefully at the latest. But we've kind of got that piece on there. And then during the summer, we laid in this notion of finance, the transition of the 3 cents, being able to spend a little bit more on facilities, and then the possibility of that levy transfer in 2021. And then on the innovation piece, we've got kind of what we had been doing, or what all the things that we put into place this year. The notion of that phase 2 of the high school schedule change. So, you know, it's not, the intent of the scheduling committee was to go to a flex mod schedule. So it's not a block, it's not a C-day schedule, it's that some classes meet every day and some classes meet every other day. Some classes are more conducive to one piece or another, right? We're going to revamp summer school a little bit more, continue to expand that. We've seen growth in summer school. We think we've got room for a little bit more growth of summer school, especially at the middle school, potentially more within the virtual piece, as well as rethinking the way we look at grade levels in summer school. And is an 8th grader who just finished 8th grade, do they go to 8th grade summer school, or should we let them go to 9th grade summer school and start working on high school credits? We believe it should be the latter, right? So we're going to see a shift of that. And then for 1920, we know that, you know, with our demographer study that and the action that we took on redistricting, that we would update the enrollment projection piece of that. And we'll be doing an enrollment and staffing report in October to you, and you can see kind of how where our official number is compared to what the estimates were going to be. I mentioned that a little bit Monday night, but that next week is the official number. But when we laid out those general ideas in 2016, we just kind of had this notion of a school within a school, this notion of, okay, we're kind of thinking around doing something that became Mosaic at elementary. We're talking about doing these things at the high school. Middle school's kind of left in the middle. What's that going to look like? So we began to flesh that out a little bit. And for the middle school piece, really looking around middle school innovations and really the idea of how do we give middle school students more choice in course offerings? Because if you choose band or choir, you're almost locked out of anything else because of the way our middle schools are structured. So how can we make that look differently? So we've had our middle school principals have been working on that really hard. Met yesterday, today. Keep working on that. And then we also started talking about what we're calling Academy 255, which I'll speak on a little bit more. And is that something that we could do? But also if we look at across all of our buildings, could we do something with librarians as well, especially at the elementary school? So from the middle school schedule change, which is kind of what it's become, is looking at a possible move to an 8-period day for middle schools in order to provide additional choice for our middle school students so that they could do band and project lead the way should they want to. Or I guess they could even do band and choir, you know, so more choice for our middle school students. And in doing so, that would, we believe, early at this point, but the belief is that would require need for staff. We would need some FTE for that. Next piece is this Library Media Center realignment. And how do we do that? So if we look across 11 elementary schools, we got 7.2 librarians. So we have libraries that are open 2 days a week. We have libraries that are open 3 days a week. We have libraries that are open 4 days a week. So how can we get them to all 5 days, right? How can we make it where our libraries are open all the time? Well, it takes 4 librarians, so we need to get up to 11. Fairly confident that we can do that over 4 years, but could we do that more quickly? And then with that additional library time, how can we utilize that person for computer-based instruction, for maker spaces in our libraries across all elementary schools instead of just having, you know, a hit and miss on that. So that as a piece. And then lastly, this Academy 255. Academy 255 is just a place name. You know, we could have called it Henry, but we've been calling it Academy 255. But really kind of pondering around the notion of a problem-based learning school within a school. How do we do that? And can we start it as a pilot? Can we expand it? Our timeline for that is kind of cloudy. We've been really talking around and hoping, could we do it in 18-19 at the middle school level? And then expand in the middle school and expand in the high school for 19-20? What could that look like, right? So if you think about, okay, middle school changes are going to require FTE. The libraries are going to require FTE. This would require FTE. So where do you get that? Where do you get that? Well, some of it is realignment of existing FTE. If you think back to the spring, we showed that elementary staffing, because of the decline in student population at the elementary, that over 4 years, that elementary staffing we would anticipate would go down by 8. Right? And that's really just a function of the 5th grade class is like 880 something kids, and the 1st grade class is like 700. Right around 700, 710, something like that. We'll have the official counts when we do the enrollment and staffing report. But we can tell pretty easily on the elementary side that there is going to be a decline in staff. So how can we reallocate those positions? Then do we need to maybe add 1 or 2 to make some of these things happen? And, you know, as I have kind of said repeatedly on a couple of occasions, but how do we live within our current footprint? And living within our current space, right? So for us, internally, we think in terms of those 3 pieces that our priorities would be the full-time librarians in the elementary school. If you think about all of the cuts that have taken place across the district, no level has suffered as much as elementaries. So do some continued support for elementary in terms of librarians. The next piece being around the middle school schedule change, because that would impact 2,400 students, roughly, if we look at our number of kids in our middle school. And then the third kind of priority piece being the Academy 255, as we figure out how can we get FTEs for next year and then beyond. We think from a space and staffing standpoint, if we could make everything work, Academy 255 for next year would not be a problem. Beyond that, and how we move that into long term, we begin to see some struggles because of staffing and space. So it's just really why we have on that strategic planning document question marks behind all of those pieces, right? Can we make those happen? And in what time frame can we make those happen? We believe we can make them happen, but it's a larger question of when, and especially around the Academy 255 concept. We know we're going to see a decline in elementary FTE next year, so doing 1 librarian's not going to be a problem. We don't see that as a problem at all. We'll be able to add. So if we think about libraries having 2, 3, and 4 days, our plan would be to get everybody to 3, and then get everybody to 4, and then get everybody to 5 days a week. And then what will the ending requirements for the middle school schedule change be? What will be those FTE requirements? What's going to be the final decision on that? And some of that is a little bit of a challenge because we would really like to make a decision around Academy 255 early as possible. so that we can select staff, begin site visits with them to take a look at schools that do similar things, and work on professional development with them, with the staff. Because initially we're talking about, we were talking around a pilot of 48 students and 2 teachers. So kind of similar size to a Mosaic classroom, right? So 2 teachers, 48 kids, not 1 teacher 24 and 1 teacher 24, but a combined piece. So what could that look like? Yet it will probably be later before we have a good handle on what we can do on the middle school choice and scheduling piece. So our timelines to make those decisions at this point aren't really aligned perfectly with the way we would see. You know, it'd be great if they all lined up like the sun, the earth, and the moon, and you know, we had this perfect eclipse and we could get everything to work and make a decision on all 3 relatively quickly, but we may not be able to in that regard. So that's kind of the broad general notion of where we are, strategic plan. So if we go back to here, that's everything kind of in one place and on one piece, and that's kind of what we look at, because we want to see how things impact one another kind of across the way. So with that, I will attempt to answer any questions.
Can we get that one emailed to us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that the same one that you had at the facilities meeting?
No.
Okay.
We've changed it since
Okay. Then I'd like one too.
The facilities piece is pretty close to this. Actually, in this, the facilities is on the second page, but I mean, it's all in one document.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see that the district is continuing with progressive development in the education model. So I think it's all very exciting. I think it takes a lot of energy, and I think the SMART approach is really what you've described, in that you really have to give some thought into this planning piece, because we want it to be sustainable. And even though, as I was saying earlier, we all really want all these great things to be happening right now across the board, or at the level of the full vision that we're all agreed upon, if we move too quickly without the proper planning, then it might not be sustainable, because perhaps we didn't look at what kind of funding or staff or resources that it would require. So I'll be anxious to learn more about it as you all continue to grapple with those priorities. I think they're great priorities. I think it is continues to be a really nice opportunity to continue to put Mehlville on the map of being innovative and offering students difference in educational models. And I think that that's the essence of really looking at education, because we all learn differently. So that does answer some of my questions from earlier. Again, selfishly, I have a 4th grader who will be leaving Mosaic after a year and a half, and I really will continue to be interested in what options he has to mimic that, if that's what he chooses. He may choose to not, and there may be other students who aren't in that model who want to go into that model, and so it'll be kind of fun to really see the sustainability of that model as they move around, and others who might have an interest who weren't in that in the K through 5th opportunity. So, thank you.
Well, we also kind of talked around, if you look at some of the pieces that we've done at the high school, that this Academy 255 concept in the middle school is the feeder to feed those programs in the high schools as well. But, you know, I said a year ago in the State of the District address, and I said the other night, you know, we're really trying to do what we already do better, but we're also trying to create a little bit better future for kids. So if you look at, you know, the top 3 kind of sections there, those are doing what we already do better. And we've got that brown piece of trying to look to the future and what can we create and what can we offer students. And it's really about, for us, I think, how do we expand opportunities for our students as they move towards graduation, and that every kid doesn't have to get to a high school diploma walking the same brick path. That how you get to that diploma and how you show knowledge to get to that diploma
can be very different. And how do we create the structures that are so that our students have those opportunities?
And how do you make people be patient with change?
The other piece I like about the middle school option is that it provides the students some choice, right? And that they get to start that autonomous road a bit themselves, because we receive those 18-year-olds at the college or university level, and oftentimes decision-making is very difficult because they've never had to do it, because they have neurotic moms such as myself who are planning for them all the time. Yeah, I wear it almost as a badge. It's really probably bad. But they also just go through the system kind of lockstep. And while they may face that when they get to college, depending upon what degree or major they decide, I think developing those abilities earlier on is a good thing. And I think it will assist them in getting to the high school level where they do have choice now in our flexible model to be able to make those decisions and determine kind of what paths they do want to take. So I think starting that a little earlier is a good thing.
So kind of along those lines, and it's really nowhere up here, but we think about and talk about, kind of the restructuring and, the work that Brian's been able to do and really keep us focused around data and the strategic plan, keeping that in our faces so that it doesn't go by the wayside and it's something, it's not the 30th thing on Jeff's list to do, it's number 1 on somebody else's list, right? Is that with our reconfiguration, we've got John DeWally as our Director of College and Career Readiness, and he's working with Amanda Zink in our curriculum department in terms of the career pathways. So how to ensure that in all of our pathways that there is a college credit-bearing course in some way, shape, or fashion, so that all of our students, regardless of pathway, are going to have access to something that's credit-bearing, as well as should we also think about, as you look at students transition not only to college but into career, and how much self-directed learning is required across any multitude of career fields, should we consider at some point in the future that an online or blended class becomes a graduation requirement? Is that a piece to consider? Some are doing that. Some have had that in place for a couple of years now. But if our goal is to prepare students for what that may look like, is that a set of skills that our students may need to have? And we're going to know that in December, because in December we've got a group working on what it is, the skills and attributes that a Mehlville School District graduate should have. So we've got a group, a lot of business and industry on that group, working on that profile of a graduate. And that can help us in that regard and help us with some of these programs, and ensuring that we're offering the pieces so that kids can walk away from high school with those skill sets.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I think one thing, or to what you said, that teaching the kids at a younger age is important, because my daughter, who's a junior, is in an innovative math class. The teacher teaches innovatively, and she's resisting it. I mean, because she's just, Mom, I'd rather take notes. And I'm like, really? You don't think the way she's teaching is more exciting and collaborating with the whole class? No, I'd rather take, it's just completely from habit, how she wants to learn. So, like you said, if she would have been taught that a little earlier. And then also to what you said about doing the online stuff, my older boys, I mean, we're never even really aware you could do those things. Now, my daughter does do some online stuff so that she can take AP classes during the school year. She'll do online financial planning and things like that. So it's good to get the word out, in my opinion, to everybody that that's an option, so that they can take classes that they really want to take. So in her instance, it's the Project Lead the Way biomedical classes that she really needed to free up her space for.
Right.
By getting rid of her financial planning class, which is a mandatory class, and her gym class she does over the summer. So it's just important to get that out there to the whole district so they know that there's all those different options.
I think moving what had been known as Alt Academy, that virtual and online piece, into the high schools has helped reduce the stigma around that type of delivery system. And that's really what we're just talking about here, is whether it's Mosaic or Academy 255 or anything else, we're still talking about the same standards. We're just talking about making a different delivery system to get to those standards. And as you look across the district and what we've got going on, you know, we're doing these types of things in a way that it's a choice, that families can choose that delivery method. And, you know, from the change perspective, we're not forcing that particular delivery method. Right. And that's kind of why we look, you know, is the notion of this flex mod schedule, because that allows more opportunities for kids to move in and out of the high school building during the day and be able to put together a schedule where, you know, they may be at the high school for a little while, then they may run over to the community college for a little while, or they may be in CAPS for a little while, or South County Tech, or running out for a job shadowing experience. And they can do those things and come back in and out of the high school rather than only having 3 spots during the day, but have multiple places during the day where they can come in and out of the high school schedule. But they can customize it to them.
I think to get to your point again about getting the word out, I think it's not only important for students, but I think it's important for the rest of the community and or parents, because really what we may have to compare it to is a very traditional diploma pathway, right? And so sometimes it's helpful for us to hear that multiple times that you can choose this and it's still going to equal this, or you can do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and it's going to equal that. It takes a little bit of the fear out of all this change. I think it takes a little bit of that away, but it really is just informing those who help us make decisions as students that it's okay, that it's different, but it's still going to get you the same diploma. You know, you're still going to get to the finish line, but it might just be so remarkably different from what many of us experienced when we graduated from high school that sometimes it's harder for us to get our head wrapped around it. So I think the more information we as a district can continue to put out there to our community, I think the better that will aid our students in being able to take those choices, and their parents or guardians or whoever to help them understand that it still equals the same end game.
What we've found in that regard, especially with CAPS, is that last year we had 8 students in CAPS. This year we have 34. So we don't have a lot of students in my path. We don't have a large number of students in early college. But John DeWally's plan is putting together short videos of those kids talking about the experiences they're having. Because that's what we saw with CAPS. It's kids selling kids that this is a high quality experience. And the skill and some of the skills and attributes that I'm getting out of this experience, I would not get in a regular high school setting. And then, how do we create those experiences earlier and earlier in a student's career?
I think to what you were saying, the way we look at it is we all got our degrees the same way. There was the same path. There was no options as far as what we wanted to do. So I think the other piece of that, as far as getting it down further and further to our kids when they're younger, but it's also getting it to our parents. We have a tendency to push our fears of change, of something different, onto our kids because we don't know any better. And I know I would have done things completely different with my son when he started his freshman year in high school. And it was simply just not knowing about certain programs, options that he had 3 years ago. So I'd like to see us, and I think this will probably come more from the communications committee side of it, with how we communicate to our community, how we communicate to our parents through our schools and things like that. But our parents aren't going to be able to be so afraid of that change as well. and to see those options. Let their kids try it. We're not going to let a kid fall through the crack because they tried something to see if they liked it or not. And if it didn't work, then we're not going to not let them graduate. So I think a lot of this is going to go around our communication, but just that fear of change that we have all the time is going to have to be something that we really try to push onto our kids and try to get them to do something different, try something different. Absolutely.
I'm a little astounded that there's so much mystery surrounding the online classes because, I mean, almost every college now offers at least 50% of what they have available is available online. And in fact, I was wondering why couldn't we do that with the kids who want to take band and choir in middle school? Why couldn't they have one class online?
We do have a limited number of middle school students who do some online coursework. And that, it's something that's in the back of some of our heads. We've just not verbalized it and gotten it down on paper yet of what that might look like. But it is something that's floating around there, especially as we think about, you know, how do we move kids along a continuum that's really just a continuum towards adulthood.
Yes.
But in terms of learning, from dependence to interdependence to independence. Right. And how do we do that? And if we begin to do that, you know, with just thinking about the Academy 255 notion, right? Is that a kid that would be in that for 3 years will probably be pretty close in the interdependence into independence realm.
By the time he reaches high school.
High school could look very different for that student. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, there is still the notion of the high school experience, right? We get that, right? So we're not talking about blowing up what high school looks like. We're talking about offering programs that students can opt into and have a choice to take a little bit different path. And what we've got to do a really better job, which is what John is concentrating on, is having all of that stuff that's available in one place, right? Kind of like this, everything's in one place. Because we think about options and the options that our kids have, there's an option that hardly anybody talks about. And that is, through the VIC program, our students have the opportunity to go to magnet schools in the city.
I had no idea about that. I just heard that this week.
We have 19
students. Son was going to go.
We have 19 students who go in, right? And that number's gone up because St. Louis City has a biomedical high school now.
Yep.
Right? So those are kinds of things that can attract our student programs that can attract our students. They're not just in the district, but it is a program that our students have access to. And South County Tech is working on a whole bunch of stuff that does not look like traditional auto body or, you know, cabinet making or any of the things that our generation might think of as
technical,
low tech. I mean, it's way more tech than both.
But the flip side of that, though, is if a student chooses a different path, the fluidity to be able to go back, right? You know, and that is kind of what you were talking about, Sam, is we want all students to succeed, and so they may try this route. You mean if they try it and don't like it? Yeah, they may try it, and then it, you know, it doesn't work, and, and you know, obviously there would be a plan in place for that student to then go back and it not be a punitive situation for them, so.
The only people that are going to be mad about this are the universities, because now the kids aren't going to change their career path 3 times their freshman year or their sophomore year and have to retake all their classes, and
if we do it right, they'll have an associate's degree and they'll walk out of here.
Because they'll know their career path a little bit better.
Right. Larry's really right. You know, part of what you hope to learn through those experiences is not just what you want to do,
what you don't,
but what you don't want to do, right? You know, if you have, you know, whether it's a summer job during college or a job during college or whatever, sometimes learning what you don't want to do is just as important as learning what you want to do.
And if you use your freshman year in college to figure out what you don't want to do, then you have to retake your classes that are hefty price. Or same thing with the online stuff. I mean, my kids that are in college, they do online if they can't fit it in their schedule, or honestly, to save a few dollars, they take some of their stuff that will transfer at a different university and transfer it in, and it saves a ton of money. It's like a third of the cost to take simple classes at the community college and transfer them in. And I mean, both my boys do that over the summer just to stay ahead and save money.
Well, what I like about this, looking at this, is seems to be a real good combination of the fundamentals that we know we've got to take care of. That's the assessment scores. It's making sure we have a quality staff. But the opportunities you talked about, in my terms, R&D or innovation or improvement of what we do, that excites me. And especially, I think about the cumulative effect of just what we've started to see on the surface from Mosaic. And the issue of if you can put more choice and more coursework, more opportunities at the middle school level, how does that accelerate high school?
Yeah.
I think that's the exciting part. This is like a really good Lego model. You've got this terrific base. You can go up with almost anything you want now. It's a matter of just how you approach it. I think that what I saw in this too is I think what we learned about understanding FTEs and space that we can reuse, and knowing when it's time to pull the trigger, and if we have to grow, we'll grow if the reasons are there. So I like the way this was all tied together.
My turn.
Kevin?
I'm going to be really quick. From where we were 2 years ago to where we are today is absolutely amazing. And what is being laid out here for future paths, both known and potential, I think is equally as amazing and exciting. So I'm going to leave that part there, and I just also want to say I'm really happy that we have data at the building level.
Yeah.
So our question is kind of almost the same question that we had back in January of 2016. We presented these broad general concepts of moving forward. We've begun to narrow some of them down a little bit. We've talked about 3 things specifically that we would like to move into in the relatively near future. So tell us no now if that's not a direction that you want to go in, so that we don't spend time and effort. Or tell us to keep moving in that direction and we'll keep working on it.
Well, let's make this easy. Kevin?
Keep moving.
Jean? Keep moving. Lisa?
Keep moving.
Larry?
Onward and upward.
Peggy?
Keep moving.
Sam, keep moving.
All
We
right.
appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank y'all.
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Very good.
All
Very
right.
different.
We are ready to go to close. For the 4 people that have stayed with us.
I move to enter closed session meeting for the purpose of reading of minutes of previous meetings and corrections and approval of same and other items under the Missouri Revised Statute 610.021, subsections 1 through 21, and 610.022, subsections 1 through 6, lease, purchase, or sale of real estate, Statute 610.0212, preparation for negotiations with employee groups, Statute 610.0219, and individually identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applications for employment, Statute 610.02113.
Second.
That's
good. He's getting better.
Peggy?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Jean? Aye. Sam?
Aye.
Lisa? Yes.
All right. We will move to close. Thank you.